Hello my friends, we're back here for another video. I'm going to be talking about airplanes flying over a spinning globe, especially over the North Pole, over the northern regions. Flights flying this region here that you see on this animation. And I have created this animation, which is a timer, 24 seconds timer, where the airplane will be traveling this region and each second equals to 1 hour. For example, a flight that takes 8 hours over the pole, we're gonna set the timer and see where this flight starts and where it finishes. We will briefly look at some of flights flying from west to east and from east to west, as globe believers claim that they should take the same time, the same effort, the same amount of fuel, when we know it does not. You can look at this person trying to swim against the stream. This person never leaves her place because it is really difficult to swim against the stream. Especially imagine just flying an airplane, for example, at the equator at 550 miles per hour against the atmosphere, which they claim rotates with the Earth, and that atmosphere is going from west to east at 1040 miles per hour, so it makes those claims impossible. We're gonna look at all of that in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Our very first flight, let's look at this London to Miami flight. Here's the flight route as it is shown on the Great Circle Map website. This is the view from the top as looking from above the North Pole. We have here the center, the North Pole right here. We have the prime meridian, London being right here, Miami. And remember, this is the starting point. This flight takes 8 hours, flight by Delta. And we're going to go ahead and start the timer. This is the timer. So the timer will run for 8 seconds because 1 hour equals 1 second. It will take 24 seconds for a complete rotation. Just like, according to the heliocentric model, it takes 24 hours for one complete rotation of the Earth. So let's go ahead and start the timer. This is the video of the timer right here. Remember, London's right here, Miami. Let's stop at 8 seconds. You see, remember the plane is taking off from London towards Miami. At the same time, the Earth is rotating from west to east. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the timer. This is the plane coming. Here is Miami. Remember, the airplane took off from here but had to go and chase the city. Okay, makes no sense. So let's go back here. This is the final flight route right here. The plane took off from here, but it had to chase back the city because of the Earth's spin. Now, Globers will say that the Earth is rotating and the airplane is rotating with the Earth like this. So is the plane going forward or backwards? Because now Miami is right there, but how did this flight happen? Like the plane was going forward while at the same time being moved backwards because of the rotation of the Earth. Makes no sense at all. It only makes sense on the flat Earth map. Now let's look at the flight back from Miami to London. Now this is the flight route, the same one. So let's go ahead and watch the video. Okay, let's go ahead and set up the timer. So let's go ahead and see if this flight from Miami to London. So let's see what's gonna happen. So we started right here, Miami, towards London, which was right here. Now London is right here. So the flight route should look something like this. Let's compare. So now we compare here the flights. So this is the start. It started right here and it ended right here when after 8 hours of flight, the initial flight route looks like this. After 8 hours of flying on a spinning ball, this is how this flight route should look like. This is what they call the Coriolis effect. So what is Coriolis effect? Let's watch a couple of videos that explains and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so we know the Earth is spinning on its axis, and this spin has implications for the direction. We call this Coriolis. Now, this is quite a complicated sounding business, but I've got a simple experiment to show it here. Chopping board, we've got a disc of paper pinned to that chopping board, a ruler and a pen. I'm also going to need a little bit of assistance, so Helen is joining me, and she's going to spin the disc of paper as if it was the Earth, as if we were looking down from the North Pole, from above the North Pole. That means you need to rotate that disc anti-clockwise. I'm going to draw a straight line along the ruler as Helen rotates that. And just look at what happens. The spin of the Earth means that that straight line is not straight. That is Coriolis in action.
Coriolis effect. An object in motion appears to be deflected from its course, as if a force is pulling it sideways. To demonstrate this point, let's imagine a game of catch being played by two people on a merry-go-round that spins like the Earth but is flat. Without rotation, the ball appears to follow a straight path from thrower to catcher. Imagine the ball is tossed from the center to someone at the edge. With rotation, the ball still travels in a straight line in space, but because the catcher is moving, the ball misses. From the vantage point of the catcher, the ball appears to curve away. The direction of apparent motion is to the right when following the path of the ball. Now the ball is thrown the other way. Because the thrower is moving, the ball has a velocity component to the right. The motion of the ball appears deflected to the right, and the ball misses the catcher again. Let's look at a throw across the merry-go-round. Both people move with the merry-go-round. The ball is thrown. Although it flies straight, it appears to be deflected from its original path. Apparent deflection increases as the ball travels farther.
To an observer above the merry-go-round, the path of the ball appears straight, while to someone sitting on it, the ball appears to curve to the left. This exemplifies the Coriolis force, whereby, to an observer on the rotating Earth, the path of an object appears to be deflected, and this is a result of the Earth's rotation.
This is a website that teaches kids about the Coriolis effect. Coriolis effect. Flying south. Objects moving above the Earth's surface are subject to what is known as the Coriolis effect. An object moving a great distance over the Earth at a particular destination must compensate for the rotation of the Earth, changing the position of its destination. Here is a small red bird in the North Pole that would like to fly south to the tropics of Rhombus for the winter. The bird begins flying straight towards the tropics of Rhombus and continue in a straight line until it finds land. Drag the red bird south to see where the bird actually lands. So let's look at this globe. Earth, it will be rotating from west to east, while the bird on top will be flying south to this place called Tropics of Rhombus. As you see, the bird missed its destination, even though it flew south on a straight line. The bird missed the tropics of Rhombus because of Earth's rotation. This is another website that deals with the Coriolis effect, as we see here on top. So you see this man playing pool on the top of a rotating ball Earth. So what I will do, this is the initial direction and the initial position. I'm going to point this guy, let's say, to a flight going from right here. This flight is leaving the north of Russia right here down to what it is here, Somalia. So this airplane is taking off from here on a spinning ball Earth. So all we have to do is play start and see what's gonna happen. Well, because of the supposed curvature of Earth, an airplane leaving here the region, the North Pole, towards Somalia would end up in West Africa. Now let's pick another flight. Let's reset. And now this guy is going to be flying from north of Canada down to Guatemala. Same thing. Remember, this airplane is taking off here towards Guatemala in Central America. Start. So the pilot would probably get lost in the Pacific and die because of the so-called Coriolis effect, which doesn't exist at all. If Earth were really rotating, airplanes should have to aim towards the direction where the city will be, let's say in 3 or 4 hours of flight. Let's pay attention to this soccer match. How one player, knowing that the other player will be at certain point, he kicks the ball towards that player. Look at this scene right here. He kicks the ball, knowing that in 4 seconds the other player will be in that corner of the field. So you see, in slow motion, takes 4 seconds from the moment he kicks the ball until the other player reaches it. At this part, same thing, he kicks the ball. 3 seconds later, the other soccer player scores the goal. He knows the soccer player, his teammate will be at that area of the soccer field in 3 seconds. So if airplanes were really rotating towards around the Earth, they should calculate their flights towards where the airplane will be, as for example this flight from Tokyo to Washington DC. If it takes 12 hours and if the airplane could meet the city coming towards it, 6 hours of flight, or just wait until the city comes around instead of flying the opposite direction in 12 hours. So it only means that Earth does not rotate, and the airplane really has to go from point A to point B, and not wait for the city to come because the Earth is not rotating. Okay guys, let's go ahead and look at our second and third and fourth flights here. We have this flight going from New York to Shanghai, China, and this is exactly alike one that the pilot sent to me using his own professional software. It looks exactly the same. So let's look at this flight going from New York to Shanghai. This is the flight route going over the North Pole region, this region right here. And the flight New York to Shanghai by China Eastern Airlines, 15 hours long flight non-stop. Remember, each hour equals to 1 second. We're gonna run the timer for 15 seconds, which will equal to 15 hours. Look exactly where the plane is, but just look, pay attention where the plane is and where Shanghai, China is. And remember, I'm gonna start the timer the moment the plane takes off. Let's see what's gonna happen. Here you go, exactly here, primary region. New York right here. Remember, the plane is right here. Let's look at the picture again. Right here. So our plane is right here. The cursor will be the plane. Let's go to Shanghai right here while the Earth is rotating. Look, number 4. We still got like 10 more seconds and we passed Shanghai. Now the plane is basically chasing the city. 15 hours long flight. Remember, the plane was right here. Shanghai now is right here. So let's look at this flight route. This is the flight route. All of them you see goes like this because the plane was going this direction, but the Earth was rotating this way. So, it makes no sense. This is what's going on right now. The plane starts chasing. So, of course, this is not happening because Earth is not rotating, because Earth is not a globe. You get the picture now? Earth is flat, and we go from point A to point B without these crazy things right here, because Earth is not rotating. Now, let's look at the flight back from Shanghai to New York. Alright guys, this is the flight back, Shanghai to New York. Same thing, 15 hours. Point of start right here. Earth is back to its position. Here's the prime meridian. The flight will start from Shanghai, 15 hours. Pay attention to the counter. And New York's right here. So let's go ahead and set the timer again. And there you have it. We have right here the meridian, the prime meridian, Shanghai right here, New York City. Now the plane is taking off from here towards New York while the Earth is rotating. And let's get started now. Right, remember New York was right here, Shanghai was right there, 15 hours flight, New York's right here, Shanghai right here. Let's look at the flight route. Right here, that's what we have right now. Shanghai, it departed Shanghai towards New York, which was right here, but after 15 hours flight, this is where New York is, so this is the flight route. This is the point when the plane took off and the moment it arrived. Makes no sense at all on this globe Earth. Of course, this doesn't happen because Earth is not a globe. Shanghai to New York, China Eastern Airlines, 15 hours flight, non-stop. Let's move on. Let's go to the next one. We are now looking at this flight, Los Angeles to Moscow. Great Circle map, 2 flights per week, 12 hours, 35 minutes duration. I rounded it up to 13 hours. So the counter will show 13 hours. And this is the flight route looking from the top of the ball earth, going from Los Angeles towards Moscow. 13 hours, 1 hour per second, Los Angeles, Moscow, 13-hour long flight by Aeroflot. Let's go ahead and start the timer. 13 seconds is the timer. Let's reset. 0. Los Angeles right here. Moscow right here. That should be the flight route on the globe as we see here. So once Earth starts spinning, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, it's going to start at the moment the plane takes off. So let's go ahead and get started. So Los Angeles was right here, and now we have Moscow right here, but remember where the plane took off. So let's look here, and this is the flight route according to the globe. It started right here and just went around and then landed 1 hour ahead. 12 hours would be landing exactly the same spot, but 13 hours 1 hour ahead. This is the flight route according to the globe. It makes no sense, of course, because Earth is not a globe. But when we look at the flat Earth map, it makes perfect sense. Let's go ahead and look the flight back, Moscow to Los Angeles. Alright, Moscow right here, start, Los Angeles. Let's look at this flight back. It should be interesting because the Earth is rotating from west to east. Let's go to our timer here. 0 again, start right here. We have Moscow, Los Angeles, and the flight is coming from Moscow to Los Angeles now. Let's look at what's gonna happen. 13 hours, start. Los Angeles right here. So looking at the flight route, this is what happened right here. The plane was going towards Los Angeles, which was right here, ended up right there. This is the final flight route of this airplane. At the moment it took off 13 hours later, and it makes no sense if you say that the plane is not doing this. It's because you mean that the plane is flying backwards, because as it's trying to reach Los Angeles from Moscow at 550 miles per hour, the Earth is spinning backwards 1000 miles per hour from west to east. So this plane would be flying backwards. It makes no sense at all. It only makes sense on the flat Earth map. Let's move on to the next one. Let's look at this flight from Washington DC to Tokyo. This is the Great Circle Map website. 3 flights per week, 12 hours, 13 minutes duration. I believe I set this to 12 hours to round it up. Let's look at here. Okay, so 12 hours long flight from DC, Washington DC to Tokyo. Right, so let's go ahead and set the timer. Everything is correct right here, the Greenwich Prime Meridian. So you have Washington DC right here and Tokyo, 12 hours long flight. Let's look at this flight. Now Japan is right here. Remember, the plane took off from here. Here it is, the final route for this plane. It took off from DC towards Tokyo, which was right here. He ended up right there. So this is the flight route for this flight. At the moment the plane took off to the moment it landed. So it makes no sense on the globe, of course. Fail, big fail. Let's look at the flight back now from Tokyo to DC. We are now looking at the flight back from Tokyo Narita to Washington DC, 12 hours long flight. All Nippon Airways. Is Tokyo, is DC. Let's go to our timer. Set the timer again to 0. Everything looks good right here. Prime Meridian. We have DC right here. Tokyo. Remember, this flight is now going from Tokyo to DC while the Earth is rotating. So we start the timer at the moment the plane takes off towards DC. Let's do it. Alright, here's DC right here. Remember, Tokyo was right here. So let's look. Tokyo was right here, and the moment it landed, right next to it. So it's best just to hover around and land it. Wait for DC to come towards you, because it makes no sense on the globe. Of course, Earth is not rotating at all. Earth is flat and stationary. It makes no sense on the globe. Unless you claim that the plane is either flying backwards. It makes no sense at all, guys. Let's go ahead and look to our 2 final flights. This is our final flight, and we're gonna cover both ways. Now this is a flight from Singapore to New York. It takes 19 hours, 18 hours and 40 minutes. So I rounded up to 19. And the funny thing is, this flight when going from Singapore to New York, flies west of the North Pole. When coming back from New York to Singapore, flies east of the North Pole. The reason is because there is a jet stream right here. And let's look now. The flights going from New York to Singapore. It's 19 hours long flight. This is the flight route on the top of the globe. Remember, the Earth will be spinning at the moment this airplane takes off. So let's go to the timer. Make sure everything is correct here. Prime meridian. Remember, this is a 19 hours long flight going from New York towards Singapore. So it's going to be a crazy flight route on this one. So let's go ahead and set it out. So this is what it's gonna look like on the globe at the end. So the airplane took off from New York City right here towards Singapore, which was right here, but with the rotation of the Earth, now Singapore is right here. This is how this flight would look like on the rotating globe from the moment it started to the moment it landed in Singapore 19 hours later. It makes no sense, of course, on the globe spinning ball Earth, because Earth is not spinning, so that it makes no sense at all. I just look at the flat Earth map and see how this flight really does look like. Let's look now at the flight back from Singapore towards New York. Okay guys, so this is the flight back, leaving Singapore towards New York. 19 hours long flight. Singapore Airlines, it's a big Airbus 380. Flies this route. Let's go to our timer, 19 hours long. Go back here. Remember, this is the flight back coming from Singapore to New York, 19 hours long. Let's see how crazy this flight route is going to look like. Right, departed here, Singapore, 19 hours long, had to chase New York. This is how this flight route would have to look like on the globe the moment the airplane took off, chasing New York while New York was spinning around the globe to finally land in New York right here after 19 hours flight. Makes no sense at all. On this globe Earth, it only makes sense on the flat Earth. You have seen here 5 examples of airplanes flying over the top of the ball Earth, and we can see how this thing makes no sense at all. Earth is flat and stationary. Airplanes only compensate for wind currents, jet streams, winds that come from west, from the east, from up and from down. There is no compensation for the so-called Coriolis effect because Earth is not spinning. Earth is flat and stationary. It has been, it will always be flat and stationary. Thanks guys. I'll see you the next time. Take care. Bye bye.